Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We had a another joint but distance weekend experience.
Yes, we did. And to me, this one was like the Stray Kids one was great. Like experiencing something together, not together, like at a distance. The most we could do something together, I guess. Um, but to me, I think this one was a little bit more like meaningful in a lot of ways because
Yeah.
this played a big role in like why we're friends and
hmm
why the podcast even exists and everything.
Yeah, so we saw The Rose Come Back to Me, their documentary, over the weekend. Um, And it's actually so funny because I completely forgot about this anecdote that we literally met because of their Coachella performance. Like we sort of knew each other online. Like we'd, followed each other, commented on each other's posts a few times, but we never actually like talked to each other. And
Yeah,
then
it was one of those like we were in the same orbit, but not like
yeah.
connected.
Yeah, exactly. And then they performed at Coachella, which, if you haven't seen the documentary, their documentary kind of starts kind of with a discussion about Coachella. It's kind of like them being there, and it also kind of ends with the performance of Coachella, but it's like about their whole kind of experience and like their story as a band. But they're like, I think you had posted on your stories or something that you were watching the Rose at Coachella, and I kind of commented. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm watching it too. And like that was how our friendship started, was literally with the Rose at Coachella.
Yeah, it was like that was kind of when we started talking and never really
I
stopped.
know. So it's weird that like their story, like the movie, the documentary also is kind of like bookended by Coachella. Like it was weird too because I was watching an interview with Woo Sung before, like the day before, and he kind of mentioned like talking about Coachella whenever, and I was watching the interview with my mom, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's how I met Jay. Like that's
Yeah.
literally the thing that like got us to be friends was Coachella and their performance. Like I don't know, it's a weird like full circle moment of like this band is what got us to be friends, and then seeing their whole story of
Yeah.
like how they got here. So all
It's
that to
one
say
of
is
those,
this is like our review. We're probably gonna ramble about it for a while
yes.
because we have lots of feelings and emotions.
Big feelings, big emotions, because that was kind of the thing is like, yes, this is a review, but also for me, it was like there were certain things in the movies that they said, or like in the documentary, that they would be like, if this hadn't happened, we wouldn't have had Coachella. And there's no way for me to hear that and not think like, if this wouldn't have happened, then our friendship might not have like happened the same way, or we might not like have the closeness that we have now.
Mhm.
And so it was like one of those things of like, it's very that much that like butterfly effect of like, if this didn't happen, then this wouldn't have happened for them, but also this might not have happened for us.
That's the thing. It's like because I was still like getting into K-pop, and like obviously they're not K-pop, but they're kind of adjacent just by being a Korean rock band. And I had also like decided I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be a little more like active online and like talk to people that are interested in stuff I'm interested because I didn't have a lot of friends that were like into K-pop or anything. So it was like perfect timing that they were at Coachella. I was watching Coachella. You were watching Coachella. And I was like, oh my gosh, like we're both watching this. And it's funny that like if they hadn't done Coachella, I don't know if we ever would have actually like talked on more of a level than just like commenting on each other's posts or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like that's exactly it. Is like we had commented on each other's stuff. We knew who the other one was, but like it took that for us to really connect.
hmm
And I think there were things after that that like solidified it, but I also don't know that those would have been the starting point in the same way
Yeah.
Coachella was.
Yeah. Because there was no
So,
like moment of connection. It was like because I was posting book recommendations for series characters at that point, and like you were commenting and like, oh my gosh, that's such a good recommendation, whatever. But there was nothing that was really like a larger conversation. It was just kind of, oh, thanks, like this was fun to make. Like I'm glad you liked it. Oh, I liked that book too, whatever. It wasn't really like a full conversation. And then
yeah.
Coachella happened.
And we never stopped talking from there.
Literally. Yeah.
But
I don't even know where to
I
start
mean,
with this documentary.
I don't know. I had so many big emotions
Hmm.
about it. I mean, I know the one thing that we talked about when we discussed Stray Kids was how much more we wanted to hear the behind the scenes, how much more we wanted the interviews. And this gave us, I think, exactly what we were looking for from Stray Kids,
Hmm.
and that the balance was like more toward interviews than their music, but you still got glimpses of the music, where it fit in, and like why that song or why that moment was significant
Hmm.
in their career.
Yeah.
And so I think both of us being more wanting the behind the scenes conversations, I think this one hit a little bit more in that vein.
Yeah, I definitely think like for me, I'm realizing that like I pretty much like just pure concert or pure documentary. Like I didn't like I liked the Stray Kids movie, but I think the middle ground for me, I'm like I wanted more of both. I didn't get enough of either of them, and that was
Yes.
like my struggle with it. Whereas this one is like
Yes.
this is exactly what I want. Like I think this is also like the documentaries also kind of made me realize like why I like to watch, certain content is more for the behind the scenes aspect. Because I'm the person that watches like, the dance practice videos or the making of videos. Like I like that more than like just kind of like the fun, concept
Yeah.
stuff. So for me, the documentary was like that perfect level of detail of like, oh, we're getting to know like how decisions were made, how they met each other, certain events that happened that we didn't hear about before, they never told us at any point up till now.
Yes. I do think it was also interesting to show kind of the disconnect that we have as fans from what's actually going on.
Hmm.
Because I remember seeing specific pictures of them and things like that and being like, oh my gosh, they look so great here. Oh my gosh, this is a great concept. And then seeing those same pictures that I loved be brought up during the documentary and be like, we were in a very bad place during this time. And they would zoom in on their faces. And it was like, there's no way you can unsee the hurt and discomfort that's on their faces. But as a fan, the first time I saw that, I thought nothing of it. And so it's kind of like you don't know truly what's going on with the people that you like idolize or that you listen to and things like that when you see these pictures. And you might think like, oh, I feel like on a parasocial level, I know this person and the way that they look here looks different than in this picture. So I think they're not okay, or I think they're more okay again. But you don't really know. And so having that like realization of, oh, I looked at this picture at very surface level, and this is when we almost lost them entirely as a band.
Yeah.
This is when it almost like fractured to an unrepairable point. And I was just like, oh my gosh, they look so good here. That's wild to me.
It was a lot, and I honestly really appreciate like their honesty and like how much they actually put into the documentary. And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that they're like at an independent company, right? Like they're not at one of the big companies and like we all know this. Like idols can't say certain things. Like they're not allowed to talk about certain
Yeah.
things. And I think that's one reason that like as an example, like DPR Ian, because he's independent, he's allowed to say a lot of the things that, most idols can't. And I think the Rose were
Yes.
able to do that specifically because they were at a place that allows them to be that open and honest. And it made me feel like it should be required watching. Like I feel like every K-pop fan should watch this specifically to get kind of a
Yes.
more honest explanation of like how the company actually treats their artists and like the
Mhm.
decisions that are made and the behavior and like even because they talked about their lawsuit when they left the company and like all those things. I'm like, I feel like fans need to watch this more because there's too many people like supporting and defending companies, like there's still a
Mhm.
company, like they're still just looking to make money. Some of them I'm sure are great with great people, at the top making those decisions, but there's a lot that don't really care about the person.
Yes. Well, and I guess it also kind of puts into context some of the stuff around like Adore and New Jeans and that whole situation. Because I think fans are very quick to be like, Minhee Jen is in the right, the girls are in the right. Then other people are like, well, obviously, Adore is in the right, and Minhee Jen groomed these girls to say these things because they were so young and they don't know what's going on. And the reality is, I don't think any of us know the truth of that story
Yeah.
at all. I
Hmm.
think there's probably things that happened on both sides, but it's like we don't know the reality of if this person was defending these girls, if this person was like harming these girls. We don't know. All we know is the things that we are like seeing from an outside perspective. And so I feel like, as fans, we can see headlines of like the Rose is suing this company. This company is countersuing the Rose. Here's what's going on and why. But until they came out with this documentary, we didn't know the depth of it. And so I think people are very quick to assume that they know everything, either on behalf of the company or of the group,
Hmm.
without actually waiting for the dust to settle and to hear the information if the information ever gets out. But
Yeah.
I do think it is a good lesson to like not fully trust everything a company's putting out because they are the ones with the power and the money and the influence.
Hmm.
And so it's much easier for them to kind of smear certain things
Yeah. I
in a
think
certain way. So
I
I
think that
don't know.
happens like often too, because even like going back to DP or Ian, like there was a whole like Twitter thing recently because there's some lawsuits going on and whatever, and there was a whole thing of, oh, this person said this, and what does that mean? And why didn't Ian do this? And like a lot of fans getting involved in like, the artists' issue between each other, which prompted Ian to do an entire live where he like literally just laid out his entire timeline of like, this is what happened to me. This is, all the moments that got me to this place and like who was involved and why this
Mhm.
happened. And it's like, we don't know anything until they tell us. Like, we don't know, because even
Yeah.
like Ian's always been very open about his situation and his experiences, but there were things that he, didn't share or didn't give us all the details or, was careful about how he talked about them. And it's like you really can't make a judgment as an outsider, like it's just as a fan without all the information.
Yeah. I think that's 100% true. And I think the same goes for the concept of mental health. Um, Even piggybacking off of Ian, but also like the number of times that we've lost an idol or something and people kind of act like, oh, this came out of nowhere. We had no idea. Like we knew they were under a lot of pressure, but we didn't realize they weren't doing well. And that was one thing that was really raw in this documentary was Jeff's conversations around his mental health and his struggles and how that felt in the depths of it, but also how it felt coming out of that. And to me, it was one of those things of from the outside, I wouldn't have known how close we were to him not being here anymore. And I feel like it would be so easy to look on the outside and be like, oh my gosh, I never would have seen that coming. But it's because we genuinely don't know them on that level.
Yeah. And I think there is too, like we have to remember everything that we see, like it is a performance. Like their interviews, their shows, like every, piece of content they put online, like it is a performance. Like it's rare that you get really, really like authentic moments because
Yes.
there's a level of like curation and editing and making sure that like this is the image we want to like give to our fans. So
Yes.
even if they're going through stuff, it's like we didn't know that they were barely talking for an extended period of time. We didn't know that, there were conversations between CEOs and, Woo Sung happening and the other members were feeling a certain way about that because they weren't involved. Like we didn't know all the little things that were happening. So it's like you can say, oh, it came out of nowhere, but for them it was their life and it probably was like years of their life to get to that point, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's the thing also is we see this whole thing of, you know, this person talking to this person and this information being held from this person and things like that. But the thing that I think that we don't see is we can sit there and look as fans and be like, well, that's not what I would have done in that situation. Or
Hmm.
I'm sure I would have handled this differently, but we don't know that. You don't know what it's like to be in the thick of it. And so I think that there was potential for Woo-sung to have like this thing after coming out and saying like I wasn't conveying this information to them. I wasn't doing this. I think he had the potential to get some backlash from fans for the choices
Hmm.
he made.
For sure.
But I think the reality is like he needed to be open with that and be like, this is why these things were happening. And this is why I made those decisions. But ultimately that responsibility lands on the company, not
Hmm.
on him. I mean, the fact that they're truly trying to like separate them and be like, oh, well, now you're going to live here. And I feel like so often it's easy to say, that's not what I would have done without being in the thick of it, I guess.
Well, and at the same time, like Woo-sung very much knew that the company didn't really care about the rest of the members. They just wanted him.
Mhm.
So he had like, I'm sure to him, had a responsibility to make sure they stayed together because he kind of got them into this situation. Like he was the reason that any of this happened.
Yes. And I think he put a lot of the weight on his shoulders, assuming that it was like, not that he was the reason that they had this opportunity, but more like it was his fault that they went this direction,
Yeah.
is very much what I got from him. And it's like, I feel like in some ways, them having the opportunity to work with a major company maybe helped spread the word about them.
Hmm.
But you do have to ultimately look back and be like, with everything they went through, was it worth it? Was it not? And I feel like he very much seemed to imply that he was at fault rather than like, I don't think he went into it being like, yeah, I got us this deal with this major company and things went wrong, but look at us now. It was more like, I hate that I did this to us because, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a level of like he felt the responsibility of putting them in that situation and like he was kind of the catalyst for what happened next, whether it was
mhm.
his fault or not, because really like they were young, like it shouldn't have been on them to have to make all these
No,
decisions and do this, right? Like that shouldn't have been on them. But in this situation, I can see how he felt responsible for where they got, like why they had to go through all of that. And like
yeah,
on it, like it's so funny because I've said this so many times, but like I don't cry a lot at things, but like this documentary made me cry because I was like the things we didn't know were so like painful and heartbreaking, and it was one of those things where you're like you're just so glad that they made it out, like they made it through this. Because like it could have gone
yes.
so like much more tragic direction.
I agree like 100% with that. I also think, and this is kind of a wild thing, we saw so much of them that we didn't realize. And I think coming from that K-pop background, which is where both of us kind of started, As We Found the Rose was that K-pop framework where there is like a set leader and a matinee and things like that. I had always kind of assumed that Woo-sung was the leader
Hmm.
in effect because I feel like he's the one that we've always like heard the most from or heard more clearly. And coming out of the documentary, I'm sitting there going, one, I don't think they have like a true leader in the
No.
sense of a K-pop band. But if they did, I almost think Jeff would be, or not Jeff, oh my God, my brain isn't working. Um, I
Leo?
maybe like I feel like one of them would have been more clearly the leader than
Hmm.
Musang, but I think that we see him as the leader from a Western perspective because he's the one who conveys the information in English first and foremost, I guess, a lot of times. But if you look at like the overall, who's doing a good portion of the overall production, the overall everything, it's not him.
This is the thing that was very like interesting to me is like after the documentary, Woo-sung very much feels like the guard dog,
Yes.
where Leo is kind of like the leader, like he's kind of the one more in
Yes.
control of like production and like, making those kind of like musical decisions and like driving them forward. Whereas like I think Woo-sung, while he's obviously very ambitious and determined and he like works really hard, I think he takes up the role of kind of like guard dog where he is like the one to be more like openly telling fans to back off or like clearly stating
Mhm.
boundaries or like he seems very like protective, which I think is why from our perspective he seems like the leader, but I think he is just like, protective guard dog. He's like, "Whoa, don't get too close to my members." You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is I think it's so easy to perceive because of like their position or instrument that they play or the space that they take up on the stage or the communication that they have with fans or things like that, who is like driving the train, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like after watching this, it was like, one, they're much more collaborative than I realized. I knew that they were all involved in writing the songs. I knew they were all involved in the music production. I knew that. But it's like, I guess from that K-pop background, it's like one of them has to be the leader.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, well, it's not exactly like that. It's not the same framework that
Mm-hmm.
you have in like a K-pop band. But I also think comparing it to Stray Kids and that documentary, like, yes, Chan's sitting there being like, I feel responsible for all of the members. I feel like I need to be a good leader to all of them. I feel like I need to be a good leader to the fans and everything. But you see the individual roles that they all take up, the space that they all take up,
Mm-hmm.
the subunits they all have, where like Lino is more in charge of choreo. You have Sri Raja who's doing a lot of the writing and production and things like that.
I do think that like the dynamic between the members in the Rose is also kind of unique to them. Because like you would say, oh, it's because they're a rock band, like they behave differently. But even like with One OK Rock, we've seen other members kind of say that Taka is the leader. Like he makes the decisions. He is kind of the musical leader. Like obviously the others are have their input and they are involved in the making of things, but like they very much let Taka kind of be the guiding force. So like I think in the rows they very could have like they could have easily had a leader that was kind of in charge. But I think just their dynamic makes them want to be more like collaborative and rely on each other. But it's also interesting too that like Woo-sung was the last one to join. Like he didn't have anything to do with the creation of the band. Like that was all Leo and like kind of pulling people in, being like, "Hey, I play this. Like, do you want to join me?"
Mhm. Which was amazing. It was amazing to see the way that they formed and the fact that I guess I kind of logically knew that he joined separately slash last,
Mhm.
but I don't think it occurred to me like the way that all of it went down.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was very much like
Um,
they had a band and just needed something extra. And they're like, oh, well, we know this guy. He has an electric guitar. Like, that's what we need. Like, it was kind of just like, he's cool. We like hanging out with him. So, like, let's just add him to the group. All right.
I think there's that pressure when you start a band to be like, we're gonna make our own stuff. We're gonna be super original. We're gonna write all our own songs. And I love that idea of, if you take a song that someone else has written already, that's already made, and you're playing it and you see where the flaws are and you see where the kinks are, you're operating off of this pre-existing thing, then you are more able to pinpoint like this is where the problem is. This
Yeah.
is where the breakdown's happening.
Yeah, it seems like because they spent that year like really just practicing and like busking together, like they really built a foundation of like teamwork and like trust in each other. And like obviously at the company there was a little bit of fallout with that because of, external interference, but I think they all like they really created a good foundation, like a base to keep the band going.
Yeah. That's the thing. I feel like without that foundation, if they would have just dove in and been like, we're just going to start creating our own stuff, we're not going to worry about this, like, we have to launch right now, things like that, that would have shaped them so much differently. But they knew each other's weaknesses musically. They lived together. So obviously they knew each other's overall strengths and weaknesses. They
Hmm.
knew all of that going in. And I think that was one of those things of like, Woo-sung knew Jeff's voice was strong. He knew that these things were, that this person was good at this, that this person was good at this. So when they were sitting there being like, oh, well, so and so can't sing, so and so can't do this, so and so. And he's like, I know for a fact that they can.
Yeah,
Like, I
exactly.
know that I know you're wrong about this.
Hmm.
It was easier for him to go to bat for his members a little bit harder, I think, knowing that they knew each other's talents inside and out.
Yeah.
I also think that all of this is interesting in the concept of, or like in the context of fan service, with us kind of also being into like queer shows and things like that. We see a lot of this, you know, this idol and this idol are connecting, or this star and this star are like, obviously they're together, but it's a lot of us reading between what they show us.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about the whole concept of it's all a performance. The things that we see from our favorite groups, the things we see from the stars that we like and everything, all of that is a performance. And I think we have this mindset of, well, if they're not in the context of their show and they're, at a fan meet or something and they say or do something cute, it must be real. But the reality is like that is also acting.
Hmm. Yeah, because there's
Um,
even they were kind of talking like Woo-sung was kind of talking about how like Woo-sung on stage is different from like Sammy in real life. And like he also
mhm.
mentioned that on the interview he was on when they were talking about the documentary and like the idea that like he has to keep some level of difference because it's not the same person. Like the performance you put on stage and to the fans is not the same as who you are like in everyday life, like on your own. So like I think that was really
Yeah.
interesting too because they're all I think they all seem to be very like isolated in the sense of like keeping their true selves and their true lives like because we know this like they're very much like chronically offline unless they have something coming out, right? Like we don't hear from them at all unless it's like, oh, there's a new album or we're going on tour or whatever. Like they don't exist like on social media outside of those promotional times. So like we know that they're
Yeah.
keeping their lives and themselves like very separate from what we perceive as fans. And like I think that's very interesting too, because it's different from, like K-pop where you get new posts from your favorite idol like every single day or whatever. Like there's tons and tons and tons of content. Whereas with the Rose, it's like you're getting scraps. It's like you're lucky if they go on like do a live stream or something, right?
Yeah. But I even think applying it to the context of K-pop, I mean, there are idols who will not have any clear online presence at all. And I'll be like, okay, yeah, they have their company account, but they don't have personal accounts, or if they do, it's so they can post like a very curated brand collaboration and you can't see the things they're liking, you can't see the content they're consuming. But then they'll say something and it's like, oh, that is like a meme from deep in the trenches of the internet. Like you are clearly actively consuming a lot of online content on some sort of burner account we're unaware of
Hmm.
because like you're referencing something that you had to be online to get. Like that hasn't it hasn't breached containment yet. So if you're referencing it, you're here
Yeah.
in the trenches with this. And so I think that a lot of times we just assume like, oh, our idols won't see that because they're not online. Oh, so and so won't see that or be affected by it because, it's just the company account. But at the same time, it's like, no, we just don't know the depth of their personal lives. And I think that's a lot of it is like people think that there's that layer of protection of, oh, yeah, they're not here. And it's like, no, they're very much here.
Yeah. You
We
just
just don't
don't
realize
know.
the level.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's so interesting. Like, even just to put out this documentary, like, it was such a, like, I feel like a big choice to be, like, so honest about their journey. And, like, especially for people who aren't, like, online that much, like, towards the fans. Like, they're probably online, but, like, not presenting themselves to the fans very often in that sense. So like for people to be like, oh, we're just gonna lay it all out there. Like we're gonna give you, a lot of, our backstory, the, horrible, difficult things, the like things that we did that probably weren't a good decision or whatever. It's like, I don't know. Like I really wish I could like pick their brains a little bit and be like, why did you decide to do this? Like what was your like I know they have their, oh, we
Yeah.
hope people take this away from it. We hope people, get to know the band and see us as people. Like I know like that message that they want to get out there, but like what were the conversations around actually deciding to do this? Like I'm so curious like why they decided to do this.
Yes. I also, I really do find it interesting because one, the question behind like why they chose to do this, I think is a big one. But I also think that the way it was done could have appealed to such a broader audience than maybe gave it a chance. I think a lot of people went, okay, well, I'll see this because I like the Rose.
Hmm.
But I think anyone who likes, the Korean music industry in general, I think anyone who likes music and just wants that behind the scenes glimpse or like wants to know more about the inner workings of a band and things like that could have gotten something out of this. But even think like this wasn't necessarily a documentary about music. It was a documentary about mental health. It was a documentary about group dynamics. It was a documentary about um, life in Korea at the time periods that they were there, but also what it is like to kind of be a part of this bigger thing. And I feel like in my theater, at least, there were only like 18 people there, I think. But it was a mix of people who have been fans of the Rose since like the very, very beginning, people who got into them maybe like a year or two ago. And then you had people who it was like, oh, I'm not actually a fan. I just know this is a thing my wife likes and she dragged me along.
Yeah.
And I feel like every single person in that theater got something out of it, even if it was just like, oh, I'm just a casual viewer who like kind of tangentially knows them or their music, but doesn't really know anything about them. I think walked away with just as strong of a feeling about them as like people who went in and are like, I've been following this band from the beginning. I've known every single song and release that they've made.
Hmm.
And I think that that's hard to do. I feel like with Stray Kids, there were people who came along who were like, "Oh yeah, my friend is in this thing and just into this thing and just asked if I could come." And I think they walked out being like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna look up this song," or "Oh yeah, I think maybe like this member that I didn't know who they were, I guess is probably my bias now." But I don't think anyone walked out of that movie being like, "I have zero interest in K-pop," and walked out being like, "I have a strong interest in K-pop."
Hmm.
It was more
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, this piqued my interest." But I think people who walked out of the Rose who were like, "I really am like 0% interested in the Rose," walked out feeling some sort of strong emotion for them as people, if not as like also wanting to listen to their music, also feeling them as artists.
Hmm.
I feel like that connection was really hit no matter where you were, I guess.
Yeah, I think too the structure of it was really smart because it's a documentary. Like this is not a concert experience. Like this is not the focus is not on their music specifically. Like it's not about,
Mhm.
interview in between a bunch of songs. It's like a documentary. So I think it was very much a documentary about, the music industry and what, Korean artists have to go through and like that whole experience more so than it was about the Rose as a band. Like it is about them,
Yeah.
but a lot of it is like, I think in a way kind of them going like this isn't unique. Like we're not special for the experience that we had. We're just special because we got out and we found a different company that supports us the way we want to be supported. Like it would because we
Yes.
see it a lot. We see a lot of times like groups leave. People don't, sign their contract renewal. They, have to fight to be able to keep the name of their group and continue independently. Or like we see this happening and it's kind of like, oh, well, that's just the industry. But it's like, it's a deeper thing happening here. Like there really is like something going on with the companies wanting to like keep people locked in and like not wanting to
Mhm.
let them do what they want to do. And like I think the Rose really kind of, pulled back the curtain being like, hey, like all of this happened, but we had to fight to get here. Like we had to fight to debut the song we wanted to debut or to have the, arrangement we wanted to have arranged or whatever. Like they had to do a lot to get what they wanted.
Well, and there was like also a big conversation around the company obviously signed them all, and I know that initially they only wanted Sammy. But even them talking about, yeah, they just suddenly dropped the music video and they didn't promote it at all. They didn't do anything with it. And we really don't know why it took off the way it did because they didn't put anything into it the way they would like their other artists. And so it is kind of that idea of, you know, do certain groups take off in certain ways because the company has designed that to happen? Because I think there's so much talent in the Rose, but the company was kind of just like, oh, we'll have the way you wanted to have it. Okay, bye. And like just kind of dropped it and then like didn't do anything.
Yeah. And that too, like, made me think about, like, my gripe with, certain companies and like Utah and like 10. Like we see this a
Hmm.
lot where like companies do not promote certain groups or certain artists the same way they do other people. And a lot of people argue, oh, well, they have a Japanese branch for that, or they have whatever, or oh, well, they had four things being released all at the same time, so they couldn't keep up with everybody. All and I'm like, but as a company, it would be your job to market the people that you have signed to your company, regardless of your
Hmm.
scheduling. Like you would have to figure out a way to make that work. So is it
Yeah.
just, you're kind of choosing who gets the and this is the other thing too, like
Hmm.
for me, I very much relate this to like the publishing industry because we know in the publishing industry certain books
Mhm.
that they think are going to sell get way more marketing than other books. They get way more of a budget.
Mhm.
And then they use that as an excuse to go, well, we're not gonna, we're not gonna buy these types of stories because they don't sell, but they don't market them either. So how would you know if people would buy them if you don't let people see them? And it's like the same concept. It's like you can't say this artist doesn't need this much marketing because they're not as popular, but you don't market them in the first place. So how would you know? You know what like,
Yeah, I mean, we did just see this with Harlequin shutting down their historical romance division and be like, well, we're not going to continue doing this because it's not selling. But if you look at their marketing and their marketing spend over the past, forever, they've thrown limited budget behind historical romance, but then they're like, well, no one's reading historical romance. It's like, because you didn't promote the historical romance the same way you've been promoting your contemporary romance for the
mhm.
past 5, 10 years, you put, 10% of the marketing spend behind it. And then you're like, why does this only take up 20% of the purchases? And
Yeah.
it's like, you should be glad it's taking up 20% of the purchases. Oh, you're going to cut this off because it wasn't marketable when you didn't market it. And it's the same with like, I mean, really, realistically, the same with Yuta. It's not even that he's not getting the same marketing spend or time as other members when it comes to his solo projects. It's that they can't even be bothered to like get the title of his song right in a group activity.
Yeah.
And they're kind of just like, yeah, there's Yuta. Japanese team can work with him. But it's been because of Yuta's effort and because of his fans' efforts, because it's not his company that's doing it.
hmm And this is where I'm very curious because he recently opened a YouTube channel and like the thought process behind it makes me so curious because I'm like, he's seen his success. Like he knows there were people for him. He was selling out his Japanese tour dates. So like he knows that there are fans and people coming from across the world to see him. But he also knows that his company doesn't promote him the way others get promoted. So, like, to me, it was very strategic to be like, oh, I'm opening a YouTube channel. Also, I have a jewelry line coming. Like, very clearly making moves that, like, allows him to kind of have some control in that promotion of himself. And, like, knowing that, okay, well, if they're not going to promote me, I'll just make my own YouTube videos. People will watch that. Like, I'll just talk about because that's the other thing. He was so offline, he didn't even know how to use Instagram stories. And like, he's very recently learned how to do a lot of these things. So it's like, he's obviously putting in a huge amount of time to like decide what he wants to do and how to promote himself. And then I'm thinking, like, the Rose, their first debut song just gets dropped with nothing, like no warning, no promotion, and they
Mhm.
like, how would you expect that to take off? Like,
Yeah.
ugh, I don't know.
Well, I also, to some degree, like think about in the context of K-pop, you have, so many Gen 5 groups right now that have come out. And like I got into K-pop kind of like at the end of Gen 4, beginning of Gen 5. And so for me, like the reason I feel like I like some of the groups that I like and that I was even aware of them is because of how much their company about them and said like, oh, they're releasing a song in 2 months. Okay, they're releasing a song in 6 weeks. And like it's
Hmm.
just continuing to be like them showing these snippets, them putting their name out there. And so like is the reason that I like To Us because To Us is like the best in Gen 5, or do I like them because their company put the spend behind them? And that makes me want to go and be like, okay, I need to find a list of everyone under this company and go and like listen to the ones they're not promoting, I guess.
Yeah. I don't, it's just so interesting. Like, especially for me, because like I've always liked rock and like recently been getting into visual K, which like is a whole different experience because a lot of the groups I'm finding is just randomly on YouTube and they have like 1,000 followers. Like they're so small and you know that
Mhm.
they're just promoting themselves, right? Like they don't have a huge budget behind them in the same way that like a big K-pop group would. And like, I don't know, it's like there's so many talented people that just don't even get the opportunity because, a company doesn't put any money behind them or any marketing time or any effort. I'm just, I don't know. The whole documentary just made me like so glad that the Rose was able to like get through everything and find a place that they felt like comfortable and supported and able to do whatever they want to do and like explore music in the way that they want to do it.
Yes. And I do also think it was interesting um when you have like because one, I was a fan of Far East Movement a while back ago, and I knew that the Rose had signed with an independent company, and I also knew that Far East Movement had an independent company, but I guess I never connected that the two were together, that like was the company that took the Rose in. But Far East Movement talking about, yeah, people would hear us and they would like us, and then we would get on stage and they would be like, that can't be you, or they would like say incredibly racist things to them because of their background, and being like, what did you think Far East Movement meant? Like, what did you think was
Yeah.
going to be behind this like music? And I'm sitting there thinking the same thing. I'm like, I thought like that was just obvious. The Far East Movement was made of Asian members. Like I thought that that was clear just by the name. But I do remember people being surprised when they would see their music video or something, being
Hmm.
like, wait a second, that's who's making the sound. And so to some degree, I think it took their experience of being kind of like overlooked, or people being like, oh, you don't sound the way we expected you. Like you don't look the way we expected from your sound and things like that, to take in a band like The Rose and help them thrive after all of the crap that happened, to be like, we kind of have an idea where you've been, even if we haven't been through the exact same things.
Yeah.
I think that's what they needed.
Yeah. I mean, all that to say, I feel like it should be required watching. I feel like everybody needs to see it because it's not just about the Rose. Like it talks about, like we've said, mental health and the Korean music industry and all the things that they had to go through to get where they are, to get to Coachella in the first place. Yeah. I don't know. It's like 10 out of 10 stars. Like
Yes.
perfect.
It was so good, and the visuals were incredible. The choice of where they included specific songs was incredible. The fact that they had concert footage after the credits was incredible, because if you went for that, you still got that. And so, like, everything about it was so good. But I also keep coming back to the fact that they were like, oh, if we wouldn't have done this, Coachella would have never happened. And Nathan applying that to being like, if that would have never happened for them, like, this wouldn't exist.
I know. It's kind of wild that it was all just like full circle, especially because the documentary starts and ends with Coachella, and it was kind of like that's where we started. Like that was our start. Like it's just,
Yeah,
I don't know. It was a very
it's kind of wild to think
emotional,
about.
like it just was a lot. It was a
Yes.
lot. I think, I don't know. I'm like, honestly, I'm like, if this ever comes to DVD, like I may have to get it because I just, it's one of those things that I'm like, it's so good, I would see it again. So,
Yes. Yeah, I
yeah.
definitely want to get a DVD or whatever. Like, if they release this in any capacity, I want to have it.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. I think we'll not keep rambling for another like 5 hours
Yes.
because we could.
I
Um,
think we had a lot of big thoughts and feelings about
yeah,
this
yeah.
one.
So tell us if you saw it. Tell us if you liked it. If you haven't seen it, let us know like your favorite song by the Rose, or if you've seen them in concert, whatever. Just put all things the Rose in the comments.
Yes.
And if you get the chance, you should go see it because I think it's a really important message, but also just a very well done documentary.
Yes, very well worth it. Also, if you have a friendship that started in a very unexpected way or like had a very specific set of circumstances that made it happen, we would love to hear about your friendship stories too,
Yeah,
because yeah, that's just all warm and fuzzy.
exactly. Okay, we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.